Imagine ruling the largest empire the world had ever seen. Not at 50, not at 40, at 32 years old. Now imagine dying suddenly, with no clear air, leaving behind an empire so vast it shattered almost overnight. How did one young king from a small corner of Greece defeat the greatest armies on earth, march over 20,000 miles, and become a legend whose name still echoes more than 2,000 years later? This is the extraordinary story of Alexander the Great. The year was 356 BC. In the ancient kingdom of Macedon, a prince was born to King Philip II and Queen Olympias. Legends quickly surrounded his birth. Ancient writers claimed that on the very night Alexander entered the world, the magnificent temple of Artemis at Ephesus burned to the ground. Some believed the goddess herself was absent, busy witnessing the birth of the man destined to change history. Whether myth or coincidence, one thing was certain. Alexander grew up believing he was chosen for greatness. His father, Philip II, transformed Macedon into the strongest military power in Greece. Through innovative tactics, disciplined soldiers, and relentless ambition, Philip created an army unlike any before it. His mother, Olympias, filled Alexander's imagination with stories of heroes and gods. She insisted their family descended from Achilles. Alexander believed her. That belief would shape every decision he made. As a teenager, Alexander witnessed a scene that became legendary. A magnificent black horse named Bucephalus had been brought to the royal court. No rider could control it. The animal bucked wildly, throwing every experienced horseman to the ground. King Philip prepared to send it away. But young Alexander noticed something no one else had. The horse wasn't wild. It was frightened. Specifically, it was afraid of its own shadow. Alexander calmly turned Bucephalus toward the sun, eliminating the shadow that terrified him. Then he mounted. Within moments, the once uncontrollable horse galloped peacefully across the fields. The crowd erupted. Philip reportedly embraced his son and declared, "My son, seek a kingdom equal to yourself. Macedon is too small for you." Whether every word of that famous quote is exact is uncertain, but the story captures something essential. Alexander possessed a rare gift. He saw what others missed. When Alexander turned 13, his education took an extraordinary turn. His tutor became one of history's greatest philosophers, Aristotle. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander studied science, philosophy, medicine, literature, politics, and geography. He developed a lifelong admiration for Homer's Iliad, carrying a copy during many of his campaigns. But Aristotle taught more than knowledge. He encouraged curiosity. Alexander would eventually explore lands few Greeks had ever imagined, documenting plants, animals, and cultures along the way. He wasn't only a conqueror, he was also an explorer. In 336 BC, tragedy struck. King Philip II was assassinated during a public celebration. The identity and motives of those behind the assassination remain debated by historians. Suddenly, 20-year-old Alexander became king. His enemies sensed weakness. Several Greek city-states prepared to rebel. Neighboring tribes also challenged Macedonian authority. Alexander acted with astonishing speed. He crushed revolts one after another. When the city of Thebes rebelled, he besieged and destroyed it in 335 BC, sparing only temples and the house traditionally associated with the poet Pindar. The destruction shocked Greece. Resistance disappeared. Alexander now controlled the united Greek forces his father had assembled. His eyes turned east, toward Persia. The Persian Empire was enormous. Stretching from Egypt to India, It was the greatest empire on earth. Many believed defeating it was impossible. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont with roughly 35,000 to 40,000 soldiers. According to tradition, he cast a spear into Asian soil, symbolically claiming it as land won by conquest. His first major battle came at the Granicus River. Against overwhelming odds, Alexander led a direct cavalry charge. It was reckless. It nearly cost him his life, but it worked. Victory after victory followed. The impossible suddenly seemed inevitable. The Persian king, Darius III, finally confronted Alexander at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. Darius commanded a much larger army. Some ancient sources claim hundreds of thousands of soldiers, though modern historians generally estimate a significantly smaller force. Numbers favored Persia. Leadership favored Macedon. Alexander identified a weakness in the Persian line. He struck directly toward Darius himself. The Persian king fled the battlefield. His army collapsed. For the first time, the seemingly invincible Persian Empire had been decisively broken. Alexander didn't simply win a battle. He shattered an illusion. Most armies would avoid attacking the island city of Tyre. Its towering walls rose directly from the sea. It seemed unconquerable. Alexander refused to go around it. Instead, he ordered his soldiers to build a massive stone causeway stretching from the mainland to the island. For 7 exhausting months, they labored under constant attack. Finally, the walls fell. Tyre was conquered. Even today, satellite images reveal the causeway Alexander built. What was once an island is now connected permanently to the mainland. His determination literally reshaped geography. When Alexander entered Egypt in 332 BC, he wasn't treated as an invader. He was welcomed as a liberator after Persian rule. There, he founded the city of Alexandria, which would become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. Its famous library sought to collect knowledge from across the known world. Alexander also journeyed deep into the desert to consult the oracle at Siwa. Exactly what was said remains unknown. Ancient accounts differ, but afterward, Alexander appeared even more convinced that his destiny was extraordinary. In 331 BC, Alexander and Darius met one final time. The battlefield was Gaugamela. Darius carefully chose open ground, ideal for his cavalry and scythed chariots. Everything favored Persia. Everything, except Alexander. Using brilliant battlefield tactics, he created an opening in the Persian line and drove straight toward Darius once again. The Persian king fled. This time, the empire never recovered. Babylon, Susa, Persepolis. One after another, the richest cities of Persia surrendered or fell. Alexander became ruler of the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. Most kings would have stopped. Alexander kept marching, across mountains, across deserts, across rivers, into modern-day Afghanistan, Central Asia, and eventually northwestern India. His soldiers endured freezing winters, scorching summers, and constant warfare. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River in 326 BC, Alexander faced King Porus and war elephants. The battle was one of his toughest victories. Impressed by Porus's courage, Alexander reportedly asked how he wished to be treated. Porus answered, "Like a king." Alexander agreed and restored him to power as a subordinate ruler. It was one of many moments showing Alexander respected bravery, even in defeated enemies. Eventually, Alexander's army refused to continue. After years of campaigning, thousands of miles from home, exhausted soldiers stood at the banks of the Beas River. Beyond lay more unknown kingdoms. Alexander wanted to press onward. His men would not. For the first time in years, Alexander accepted defeat, not by an enemy, but by the limits of human endurance. He turned back. The journey home would prove nearly as deadly as the conquest itself. Crossing the harsh Gedrosian desert, countless soldiers perished from thirst, heat, and exhaustion. Even Alexander suffered alongside his men. In 323 BC, Alexander returned to Babylon. He was only 32 years old. Then, unexpectedly, he became ill. For nearly 2 weeks, his condition worsened. Finally, he died. The exact cause remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Historians have proposed illnesses such as malaria, typhoid fever, or other infectious diseases. Some have suggested poisoning, but there is no conclusive evidence. His final words are also uncertain. Ancient sources disagree. One tradition claims that when asked who should inherit his empire, Alexander answered, "To the strongest." Whether those were truly his final words remains impossible to verify. What is certain is what happened next. His generals divided the empire. Years of war followed. The empire Alexander built in little more than a decade fragmented into competing kingdoms. Yet his influence endured. Greek language, art, science, and culture spread across 3 continents during the Hellenistic Age. Cities he founded became centers of commerce and learning. Ideas traveled farther than armies ever could. Alexander the Great remains one of history's greatest paradoxes. He was a brilliant strategist and a fearless risk-taker, a student of philosophy who spent much of his life at war, a builder of cities and a destroyer of kingdoms. In just over a decade, he transformed the political map of the ancient world and connected civilizations that had rarely interacted before. His empire disappeared. His legend never did. More than 2,000 years later, military academies still study his campaigns. Historians still debate his choices, and storytellers still struggle to separate the man from the myth. Perhaps that is Alexander's greatest victory, not the lands he conquered, but the fact that history never stopped talking about him. So here's a question for you. Do you think Alexander's greatest achievement was his military genius, or the lasting cultural legacy he left behind?